Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy
Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple, this show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. This is episode 64, and welcome. If anybody's new listeners out there may have come across us, maybe you've heard about the show or the Mega Meeple through some of the Twitter, Follow Friday tweets. And for those of you who listed us, the Mega Meeple is a Friday follow Friday, or the hashtag FF, whatever that stands for. I don't know. I don't care. But I've been listed as one of the people that recommended following, and it's cool to see the company that I am listed alongside with. It's pretty neat to see that. So thank you to all of you who have listed or tweeted or retweeted or liked or stuff like that to spread the word about the show. Or maybe you've seen me on some of my video segments and the Dice Towers Board Game Breakfast segment. But if you're new here, welcome. Everybody is welcome at the gaming table here. And if you haven't already, check out our website. It's at www.themegameeple.com. We have all the episodes of the podcast streamed there. You could go all the way back to April of last year. Have news, not so much news. I pretty much just tweet or share Facebook pages of news of interest to me. I figure there are plenty other websites and showcases out there that does gaming news. But if there's anything that interests me, I'll share it or tweet it out there. But we do reviews. In fact, I'm getting more stuff out there on the YouTube channel that we just launched this week. My very first playthrough video. I'm sure months or years down the road, I'm going to look back on the video and see how, everything wrong with it. But, hey, everybody starts somewhere. Nobody hits the ground running. Anybody who expects that kind of thing from someone just starting out is just not being realistic or not living in reality. And they need to get with the times. Nobody starts out as an expert, But anyway, you got to start somewhere. And we are starting with our very first playthrough video, and we're doing it with Gearworks from Peacekeeper Games. That's a really cool game. I enjoyed it a lot. And it's always easy to put together and edit a video of a game that you enjoy. It's hardly work in that aspect. But yeah, go check that out on our YouTube channel. And also, if you want to follow us or like us on any of our other social media pages, all those things are found on the social media page on the website. It's www.themegameeple.com. And likewise, if you like the show or if you want to help support us so we can improve, technically, because, that stuff costs money to buy, new equipment, better equipment. It takes some cha-ching. And if you want to help us out to get to that point, well, you could donate to the show on either our Pod Pledge or Patreon page. The links to those are also found on the website. Well, as I talked about in previous episodes, the month of August, we are having special guest co-hosts for this month. This week, we have Marc Davis. He has a show called The Thoughtful Gamer. He has a podcast and Twitter that you can follow with that. So he's my co-host. My guest this week is Brett Sobol of The Reckoners. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these, especially the game designers and publishers, when we're talking about interviews, these are stuff that I've recorded like possibly like 3 months ago, 3+ months ago. So a lot of the conversation and the topics and the things that we're talking about during the interview is stuff that was going on at that time. And it's just a process of prioritizing and scheduling which episodes and which weeks that particular interview would be most opportune to release out into the interwebs. So let's go right into our me and Marc just chit-chatting about games, and then we'll get into this week's guest, Brett Sobol, talking about the Reckoners. Welcome back to the Mega Meeple, and as I've talked about in other episodes, we've tried out to get some a revolving door, so to speak, of guest co-hosts. Just well, actually, I'm kind of to be honest about it. I'm just being lazy this summer. It's like I figure, well, rather if I could get some other people to come on the show, that cuts my workload down to about half. So, but our grunt this episode is Marc Davis of the Thoughtful Gamer. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good. Yeah, we're actually recording this late. What is this? I only know daytime and nighttime anymore. So this is Thursday. Yeah, Thursday night. So. Yeah, Thursday, July 19th. It's what I just got. WizKids just sent me this past week a copy of SEAL Team Flicks, and I came home from today for the doctor's appointment and thought, well, I'll start putting these boards together because you have to like install these walls into the boards. Mm-hmm. I started at 6 and I finished about 45 minutes ago.
Wow. That's some intense setup.
But so it's like, yeah, but it was like, I mean, the box is like, somebody says that the box when it came in, it was the shipping weight was like 13, 14 pounds.
Oh man.
So it's a hefty son of a gun. But yeah, so I started at 6 and ended at 9:15. So for those of you out there who are thinking about getting a game, yeah, set aside an evening.
That's like Gloomhaven size, 13 pounds.
Yeah, it's the size of the box. I haven't actually put them side by side, but just I think maybe the box is maybe pushing about the size of the Mechs versus Minions box.
Oh wow!
I've been putting them back side to side together. Maybe I should just to you know. But yeah, just eyeballing. It's like, yeah, because this thing's pretty big. But yeah, so I'm getting ready to play that, and actually I got my tracking number yesterday for Everdell by Starling Games. That's supposed to be delivered tomorrow, and so I'm like just looking out the window, waiting for that FedEx truck to come.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. I've heard good things about Everdell also.
Yeah,
though I don't know much about it.
It's a neat little. I mean, it's one of those critters in a forest type of games, and yeah, I just I know I liked Mice and Mystics. So I thought, well, these have little mice or what, or not mice, but little woodland rodents going around. But yeah, but that was a Kickstarter that it wasn't estimated delivery wasn't until December, and I got a chance to interview Brenna Noonan not too long ago. In fact, this past weekend, and again, we're talking about this like this episode is going out today, but it will probably be a few weeks before it actually goes out. But in the middle of July, I had Brandon Noonan on one of the episodes, and when she said, "Yeah, we're sending that out this month in July," I was like, "Wow, that's
impressive.
yeah, that's not the general norm in the world of Kickstarters."
I don't think I've ever heard of one going out early, actually.
So what kind of things have you been playing or getting in the mail recently? Anything?
Oh, I got recently Carthage, a gladiatorial deck builder with some really cool art. It's got this like graphic novel style art, like inked almost, not just. And by inked, I mean it's like it's almost all black on white. There's not a lot of color to it, and so when there is color, it really stands out. But it's a pretty simple deck builder with a combat theme. So there's a hex grid, and you're moving around and trying to defeat people. It comes with a whole bunch of side modules, like optional modules, and I'm finding out after a couple of plays that those are almost like necessary. Like I really need to add more complexity to the game to kind of get the full experience, I think. So that's what I've been playing lately. I got in the mail the other day. I'm blanking out. Burning Rome, which is a game from a designer I interviewed a few months ago, which is a lightish combat 2-player card game set in Roman times. So I guess Roman games are the theme lately.
Okay.
For me.
All right.
But I haven't got to play that one yet. That one's still the cards are still wrapped up. I got to open that up and check out the rules.
Yeah. So we're I just realized we're sitting here chit chatting, and we haven't really talked about who you are and where you come from in the whole gaming community. So yeah, just so it's our interview question. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Marc. I run the Thoughtful Gamer. I've been doing it for nearly a year and a half now, where I do written reviews, talk about all kinds of things in the board gaming community, and then a podcast. The main podcast every other week, and then something a little bit more casual in the off weeks. And then occasionally I'll do something with video. I'm trying to get more into video stuff, but that's as many people know, a large time expenditure to do video compared to podcasting or writing.
Oh yeah. So I have I don't even know. I don't even want to guess how many hours of raw footage I have in video that I just haven't gotten around to editing because I'm still kind of like learning my way through the software.
Mm-hmm.
The audio software. I mean, I already had a audio program, basically using my DAW in my my little computer-based recording studio type thing. So I've already know how to the ins and outs of that. So I'm using that to do a lot of the editing and the sound effects and crap like that. But
yeah, I've got a big video thing. We recorded, months ago that I just need to find the time to actually get around to editing. It's not time sensitive, but I do want to get it out because I think it'll be fun. It was a live play of Twilight Imperium where we kind of periodically broke for interviews, and the plan is to turn it into a kind of a Ken Burns style documentary.
Okay.
Which should be fun. We'll see if I can do it, but I know it's going to be many, many hours, especially since I'm not particularly familiar with the editing software for video at the moment. I
have started to get at least into some kind of schedule or regiment, just with I guess going on 2 months now. Been contributing some quick video snippets with the Dice Towers board game breakfast. Having a deadline for that has really helped me sort of like, okay, this is if I'm going to be putting something on my YouTube channel, this is the kind of schedule I adopt or to try to get things out there and get it out consistently, and it's helping me learn the software as well. But yeah, it's more of a done and dirty type deal. Well, it's like, okay, so, just edit it, cut the segments out, try to get it down less than 2 minutes, slap my lower third things on there, and yeah, send it off. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's weird now that I'm doing stuff for the internet. As I say, I hate the phrase content creation. It's the most soulless phrase in the world. So I say I do stuff on the internet, which is not much better. But now that I'm doing that, like almost all the deadlines are self-imposed, and it's almost a relief, I feel, sometimes when you have a deadline that someone else has imposed upon you again.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, I really need to make sure I get this done. It can be stressful, but periodically I find it's helpful.
Yeah. Because I find if I put a deadline on myself, it's like, and I could move that back a little bit.
Oh yeah, I've been using this checklist program basically to keep track of things that I need to do, and I've got stuff on here that I've pushed back since February. Looks like is the oldest thing on here. So, I mean, it's not something I promised to do then, but it's been on the list since February, which is it's a little disheartening. But I try not to worry too much about it.
I think if things stay on your list, there's at least there's still a remnant of interest in wanting to do it.
Oh yeah, there's certainly interest. It's just it's one of those things that's like I'll do that when I have more of a comfortable buffer of week to week stuff I can post, and I haven't gotten to that point yet. It's more of a large scale project, and when you're just trying to get something out 3 times a week like I am, you need to do a large scale project. You need a kind of for me at least, some space to breathe to be able to kind of dive into that kind of thing.
So now where are you based out of?
I'm in the Boston area.
Okay. So what's the gaming landscape over in Boston?
I think it's pretty good. I've been lucky that I have friends here who I primarily game with, so I haven't searched too much outside of that friend group for meetups and stuff. But there is a meetup I go to that runs every week that I go to occasionally, and then I've met a number of people in the area who meet up and game and run little conventions and stuff. So I think it's pretty vibrant. This is the first place I've lived, or this is the only place I've lived basically since I became a gamer more than super casually. So I don't have a lot to compare it to, but there seem to be a good number of people out here who like board games.
Okay, that's good.
We've got a good game store nearby that I used to play Netrunner at a lot, and they're really nice.
Even Charlotte area, it's within a good hour's drive of at least where I'm at in Charlotte. You could visit I think close to a half a dozen different gaming stores, and I'm talking like true, not so much games, not so much stores that you have your stores that there's a few here that deal just with collectible cards where they do baseball cards and comics, and then they'll have their section for Magic and stuff like that. But we have at least 5 or 6 full blown board game stores that has rooms for tournaments and a lot of space, and even on top of that, there's like at least 2 that I'm going to think of off the top of my head, maybe 2 or 3 gaming groups or clubs. I mean, people think, oh yeah, it's really rich in gamers and stuff like that, and you must game all the time. And I'm like, yeah, that's the problem, where people are gaming all the time, and it's a pain in the butt to try to get a group of people scheduled on the same night that's not already committed to some other gaming night. And then the few nights a week that they are not gaming, it's like, well, yeah, okay, well, we got to spend time with the wife or spend time with the husband or kids or, so it's like, that's the few times they don't, the last thing they want to see is a board game.
Yeah, I found as I've gone more into adulthood that it's much harder to schedule and arrange things when all your friends are also in, starting to have families and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, you just did a big update on your Patreon page, right?
Yes, I updated it to try to basically let people who are patrons get more cool stuff. So I added a couple of new things, basic rewards for people who support the Thoughtful Gamer on Patreon. The big things that were already there is access to our Discord channel and access to exclusive live streams of us recording the podcast. And then I just added essentially claim access to my sale list of games I'm trying to sale or trade away. But if you're a patron, you can just claim whatever you want just for the cost of shipping, no other additional cost of the games I'm no longer want to keep. And then I also added once I get to $100, which I'm very close to right now, I'm very excited. We got some new patrons in the last couple of days. So once we get to $100 a month, everyone will qualify for quarterly giveaways of games that I hand select that I played in the previous quarter that I think are really awesome. So I know there's a lot of giveaways out there, but I wanted to make sure this one was specifically games that I think are great, not just, whatever random game I have lying around or something like that.
Right. When I first started out with board games, it's like I see all these people that have all these games and like a pretty good collection. And then I thought to myself, why would they have so many games? I mean, aren't there? Because back when I was a kid, my mom forced me to. I was in video games. My mom wouldn't allow me to buy another video game until I finished the one that I was playing. So I got that thing kind of drilled into my head. It's like don't buy anything new until you've used what you already had to death. And but yeah, now that I'm in board games, it's like I could understand that now. I could see the appeal and have it all that choice. And then just as times goes on, it's like you either move on to other things, or if you're I find my tastes in games change over time. There may be some games that I liked just starting out, and now it's like I hardly ever play them because my profile or flavor of game is just not that particular mechanic or theme, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I found that I enjoy heavier games more and more over time as I get used to different mechanisms and, different, even like different rule books. You get used to a rule book style from a particular publisher, and you're able to learn the games that they're publishing more quickly and easily. And I tend to love heavier games in general, but it seems a little bit easier to get into them, or at least my perspective has changed where, I was talking the other day to someone where, a couple of years ago, I thought Power Grid was a fairly heavy game, medium heavy. And now if I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, that's not too bad at all. Like, it's not that heavy a game at all, compared to something like Lisboa, or something from GMT. Like, I tend to I like, there's a lot of lighter games that I do enjoy, and I enjoy a wide variety of games, but I find myself slowly but steadily going in the heavier direction.
Usually when I interview game designers and stuff like that, I would ask them to how they got into gaming. So Since you're my co-host for this episode, I want to take a bit of a different approach. When I first started my podcast, I talked about, it seems like every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there has a podcast. So why do a podcast about gaming? And I compared it to dice. You can never have too many dice. What was it about gaming, what you wanted to accomplish, that was the impetus behind you just pulling that trigger and hitting that record button?
For me, I've always enjoyed analyzing things from like a deeper perspective. For a while in college, I would consider trying to get into film criticism. And then I found board games in college and fell in love with them. And then at some point, I'm like, I really want to write about board games. And what kind of inspired me was looking out in the board game media world, at least what I could see of it at that time. There wasn't a lot of board game review or discussion that I enjoyed. So there's a lot of reviews that were a lot of overview, how to play the game, and then a little bit of why they liked or didn't like something. Whereas I wanted to see something closer to really good film criticism that's more holistic, that goes deeper into what the experience was of playing the game, not necessarily the rules of playing the game, and then why that experience was created. What about the game mechanisms caused that experience that you had that made you enjoy or not enjoy or be confused by or find interesting but not fulfilling, any kind of opinion about the game. I really wanted to do something deeper in that regard, and then talk about game design theory and different mechanisms and stuff, which is a lot of what we do on the podcast. I think by now there's probably a fairly even split between podcasts where we talk about specific games and then podcasts where we talk about some element of gaming, be it a mechanism or part of the board gaming culture or some aspect of gaming that we find interesting. So that was the angle that I wanted to see in board game media, and I wasn't seeing a lot of it. So I thought maybe there's a place I could fit in there and do that myself.
And cool. Well, actually, when you were talking there, that brought to mind a question that I've actually often asked myself is, when you play a game, when you sit down to, okay, I'm going to play this game and I'm going to with the mindset and focus of reviewing it or critique or just kind of dissecting it, do you approach it differently versus the times when you just sit down and just want to play for fun and just sheer enjoyment rather than get deeper and review it?
I don't think I take a different approach. Even before I started The Thoughtful Gamer, I was, I'd play with my friends and we would fairly regularly have kind of a post-game discussion if it was like a new game and talk about what we liked and didn't like about the game. So we were kind of already doing that sort of thing. And I tend to overthink most things that I do anyways. So to me, part of the enjoyment of a game is the discovery process of seeing what your experience is like and then figuring out what contributed to that, what aspects of the game contributed to that. To me, that's a big part of the enjoyment of the game. That makes sense. So in short, I tend to overthink it regardless. So yeah, I kind of look at it the same way either way.
All right. Okay, I can understand that. Well, thank you so much, Marc. And now if people want to find out about you or the podcast or the Patreon, where could they go?
Everything I do is on thethoughtfulgamer.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Patreon, YouTube a little bit. I put all the podcasts on there as well, or if you look up The Thoughtful Gamer on whatever podcasting service you use, it should be there. If it's not on whatever service you use, contact me and I'll try to get it up there.
All right. And, of course, we'll have the links to those things in the show notes of this episode. And, well, Marc, thank you so much for being this episode's special guest co-host. Appreciate your time this late Thursday evening that we're recording this.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a great time, and I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. Our guest this time is one half of the designers of The Reckoners, and also one half of the founders of Nauvoo Games. We have Brett Sobol. Brett, how you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being on. Yes, sadly, Seth Van Orden wasn't able to. We weren't able to connect doing jumping through Skype's hoops, but we're gonna plug forge forward as we often do. The show must go on, but well, first of all, congratulations on a successful Kickstarter. This game kind of hit it right out of the park. Now, The Reckoners is based on a book by Brandon Sanderson. Brett, when did you become aware of that book, and how did you get the board game from the book and its story?
Yeah, so the book series by Brandon Sanderson is called The Reckoners. It's 3 full books and a small novella as well. I found out about it because I'm a huge fan of Brandon Sanderson. We first came across him, Seth and I first came across Brandon when we were reading the Wheel of Time series, and he was finishing Robert Jordan's work there. So the Wheel of Time is a very, very popular fantasy series spanning, I believe, 14 books and thousands of pages.
Wow.
Brandon was chosen to finish this book because of his unique skill set and devotion to the series. So that was our first exposure to Brandon. It wasn't long after, though, that we realized he really had a tremendous creative talent and explored his other novels. The Reckoners is one of those series. He's got several that are New York Times bestselling book series, typically like young adult type of genre, mostly action adventure type of things with fantasy mixed in. Brandon has a tremendous knack for creating worlds that are evocative and unique systems of magic or technology or just overall, kind of world building that he does. He just does a tremendous job. So that's sort of a quick story, I guess, on how I found out about him. Since we found out about this series called The Reckoners, we ultimately, said, wow, this is absolutely perfect for a board game, and we would love to work on some of Brandon's properties. Bringing these amazing novels to life for fans of the series, but also just for gamers, so they can play in a cool world. The Reckoners is a post-apocalyptic world where a bunch of people randomly develop these superpowers, and people began referring to them as epics. Epics, however, all turned out to be evil. So imagine a world now where everyone with superpowers is evil, selfish, and really kind of gathering power for themselves, and many times at the expense of innocence and victims and even lives being lost. And so you now are a part of this group called the Reckoners, which is a group of operatives, and your goal is to take down these evil epics. And to do that, you don't have any superpowers. All you have are your resources, your ingenuity, and your own ability to make plans and enact those plans and improvise when they go wrong. So to us, that sounds like an awesome board game. So
Wow.
that's sort of I'll wrap around that, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and now cool thing is that it plays 1 to 6 players, and the one thing when I saw this, the one thing that really stood out was it's a board game, but not in the sense that it, at least from the looks of it, it's not like a board in the middle of a table. The best way I could describe it for those of you who haven't seen it is the closest thing I could compare it to is Simon's Zombicide series, where you have these. You don't have boards; you have like these plastic trays with sliders and areas that you could put cards and boards and dice and stuff like that. How did you come up with that idea? Because that is really an eye catcher right there.
Yeah, so that idea actually came about pretty late, I think. So the trays that you're referring to are all made by Game Trays, who is run by a guy named Noah, and Noah has made these type of trays in different formats for many other games, including some famous ones like Mechs versus Minions and Grim Forest, and several others. And you'll just know that they're incredible. They
Yes.
take trays, to a different level of component from just storage solution into, this beautiful piece that's really a part of the game. And that's what we have taken this. So you're right, there is no central board. There are a bunch of these trays which function in many ways as different areas of the map that is the city of New Chicago, which is Chicago in this post-apocalyptic world. And the game takes place using all sorts of these trays, and it makes it not only easy to store, put out, and put away, but also incredibly simple to play, because all of our pieces have been designed to custom fit into these trays as well. So you get this really neat tactile feeling when you're playing it.
Definitely.
And I'll elaborate too that, like I said, this idea came about late. So we had the idea to make these double layered cardboards, because there's really two problems, right? One was if we wanted to do a plain board, like you referred to, we had the challenge of scaling 1 to 6 players. And if we kept the same size board, there's a large portion of it that's unused. If we wanted to produce a bunch of different boards, we could. We maybe do like a small world style thing where we have, like 2 or 3 boards based on the number of players. But we really wanted this to be simple to set up and, not have to worry about all these different maps of the same city.
Right.
So we came up with this solution to we'll do double layered cardboard. That way the pieces don't have to get knocked around because it's really sensitive. But one of the challenges we had is the way our bad guys work, and it wasn't going to be clean with any sort of piece. And it just kind of happened at this time. We're thinking about the best way to implement this when it dawned on us we had this connection to Noah, and we had an idea that, hey, wouldn't it be cool to just see what he could do to make this more of a practical, like playable tray versus storage type of tray? And of course, he was all about it, and he did a terrific job.
Definitely, certainly looks like it. And you mentioned Mechs versus Minions, and I understand there's the different pledge levels on a Kickstarter. At least the epic pledge level has, I think, is going to be coming with pre-painted minis, very similar to what people have seen in Mechs versus Minions miniatures.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly the same painting studio that did the Mechs vs. Minions miniatures and their pre-painted job. That same studio has done several other, big time campaigns. with regards to painting. So they're no stranger to making beautiful miniatures, and we're excited to bring those to life. So yeah, for our Epic Pledge level, which runs 119 on Kickstarter, you'll be able to get the deluxe version of the Reckoners plus those pre-painted miniatures, which will not be available after the Kickstarter is over.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So, if you could just give us a rundown of the victory conditions and some of the mechanics that's in the game.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So the game is simple at its core. There's one victory condition, and that is defeat Steelheart. Steelheart is a big bad boss epic, essentially, who has a multitude of powers, and he and his fellow epics will be trying to destroy the city of Nukago. And if the population of Nukago reaches 0, then the Reckoners lose. And it's pure co-op, so you all win or you all lose together. That's the basic idea. Now, how you do that is where the game really gets unique. The best way to describe it in a condensed version would be it's like cooperative, simultaneous King of Tokyo. So that, to me, embodies what this is. It is a dice rolling cooperative game where everyone is rolling at the same time and taking their turns at the same time. And when everyone's finished, then the game responds to you. So the rolls work similar to King of Tokyo as well. It is essentially, you have 3 rolls, and on each of those rolls you must keep at least 1 dice, but you could choose to stop rolling early if you like the results that you have. And once everyone is finished rolling, then you'll all take your actions together. The rolling, though, is meant to be very collaborative and communicative. So if I really need to get a certain set of actions on my dice, then I may talk to somebody across the table and say, hey, look, I've got these 4 attacks. I'd like to use them on this particular epic, but I can't until we find out his weakness. So I need your help to research them. And so you'll kind of plan out who's going to do what. Meanwhile, you're all doing it simultaneously. And then once it's all done, you'll just execute those different actions. And then, like I said, the game will respond. So because of the simultaneous nature, there's really no downtime. Everyone is constantly engaged with the game. And you're able to execute some very interesting strategic moves and decisions that engage really everybody. So that part I really enjoy. Now, the key, there's 2 keys from a design standpoint to note here if you have designers or very savvy players who listen to your show, and that is, one, when I talk about a dice rolling game, one of the things that comes up often is it's too luck based, or there's not enough decision making in here, and we are very cognizant of that particular aspect of design. And one of the things that we've done in our design is built in sort of this, we built in many ways to mitigate that luck factor, as well as to design ways to build engines inside of the game so your actions are much more predictable than the idea of dice may lead you to believe they are. Okay. And that's something that I'd like to definitely point out. The second thing is, with co-ops, there tends to be the stigma around the AI is uninteresting, or it's not smart, or it's too vanilla, too plain, no replayability.
Right.
So with the Reckoners, the way you get that replayability in the base game, you will always fight Steelheart. However, Steelheart is made variable by the types of the types of epics that come out. There's going to be anywhere from 3 to 7 different epics coming out each turn based on the number of players, and the permutations and combinations of those epics, combined with where the players decide to start and begin taking actions on their dice, is going to drastically change every single time. And it could be as simple as, Steelheart this game is going to power up his blue power track bunch more than his yellow one because of the epics that came out. That's going to create a very different type of play experience than if it had been the other way. And then you add on to that the type of equipment that's available, which Reckoners are in play, because every Reckoner has different player powers, and it feels different. The combinations of cards, equipment, the results of your dice, it all ends up being very different, very replayable. And there's like over I think there's like 16 different difficulty levels that you can play on as well. So there's a ton of replayability in here.
That really takes the whole thing of co-op to, I think its ultimate status is because a lot of co-op games, it's like everybody plays one at a time, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do right, and but the fact that everybody's doing their actions and rolling their dice and things like that all at the same time. Yeah, there's no nobody's gonna have any time to like get distracted and start playing on their phone or whatever, which is a pet peeve of mine. But
that's right. And allow me to clarify too. It's not real time either, right? Everyone's playing at the same time, but that doesn't mean that there is a timer on the game that's, forcing you to, make decisions. Like, this is a game that encourages you to think about your moves, and frankly, you're making them all together. So there are definite stopping points in that process. So you can't sit there forever. Like, eventually you'll be the only one holding, 3 dice, and everyone's going to be looking at you and saying, you have one more roll. You have to roll those dice. So it's not. There is definitely, plenty of strategic discussion, but it has a finite endpoint, and you're encouraged to take your time as well. Like, especially on the harder difficulties, you're gonna really need to be tactical, and I think that's where this game truly shines.
Yeah, very much excellent. So now the content from Brandon Sanderson, is that some stuff that he wrote specifically for the game or the Kickstarter?
It's stuff that he I wouldn't say he wrote it because the game was coming out. I'll say that he made it available to us because we asked him to with the game coming out. Now it's unclear to me whether or not like he wrote brand new stuff for this, or it was stuff he had as a result of notes and world creation and stuff that he hadn't had a chance to write about per se.
Okay.
But we are excited to offer this new content nonetheless to fans and backers of the game. And we're continuing to prod him and his team for more information. And, so far they've been terrific to work with. So we're hopeful that we can continue to get more new content as well for the series, and really excited to make that available to everybody.
Excellent. Yeah, you often hear about books being made into movies, and then maybe some movies made into board games. But here we just skipped the movies and went right to board games. So that's
well, when if you get the chance to read the book series, I think you'll be able to see a lot of how it was captured into a board game format. And when we were reading it, it was one of those things where the mechanics just kind of clicked into our head. It was, this is the way to do this, and why not? Like, let's be the guys to do it.
Okay, why not? Yeah. I personally have not heard of the book series, so so that's something you need to check out here. So well, thank you so much, Brett. Well, listen, if you don't mind, we like to play a little game with our guests at the end of the interview. It has nothing to do with gaming, but just give people an idea of who you are personality-wise and stuff like that. So you have to play in that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. And in lieu of a better name, we're calling it the Mega Meeple Rapid Fire Round. There's no timer, but I'll just rattle off 2 things, and you just tell me which one you would choose over the other. Alrighty?
Okay.
Zombies or vampires?
Zombies.
All right. Action or comedy?
That's really dependent on the day. I feel like action.
Okay. Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead?
Game of Thrones.
All right. Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter?
Ooh, man. I think I'm leaning Harry Potter.
Okay. All right. And lastly, cats or dogs?
Dogs.
All right. All right, Brett. Thank you so much. Now, if people want to find out more about you or Seth Van Orden or Nauvoo Games or the Reckoners, where could they go?
If the Reckoners is not your thing, we'd be happy to have you check out our page. We've made several other games before, including Stockpile, Crosstalk, and you can learn all more about those on our website, nauvoogames.com, or find us on Facebook or Twitter.
Excellent. Yes, and we'll have the listing of those links on the show notes of this episode. Well, Brett, thank you so much for being with us. And again, congratulations on a wildly successful Kickstarter. So looking forward to The Reckoners coming out. And its estimated delivery is in October this year, if everything goes smoothly, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We tend to run a pretty tight ship here at Nauvoo. If you look at any of our past Kickstarters as well, we've delivered all of our campaigns about 2 to 3 months early. Oh, cool. So we're hoping we can do the same thing here and deliver by July or August. But there are unpredictable factors in that. So right. October is a timeline, but fingers crossed that everything's going to be done earlier.
Thanks again, Brett.
Thank you so much.
All right, you have a good week. Well, thank you so much for downloading and listening. Come back next week as my guest will be Kathy Ford of Our Turn Podcast. Now, my special guest co-host for next week will be Gerald King III. I've always enjoyed watching and following Gerald on Facebook and Twitter. And now you'll get to hear him directly in the next episode. So come on back next week for that one. Think you'll enjoy it. So if you haven't already, please check us out on iTunes. And while you're there, subscribe to the podcast. Put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a happy review. Really appreciate it. And just spread the word. That goes a long way as well, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you will join us again next week. Until then, we'll see you at the gaming table. No problem.
You can always fix it in post.
That's right. Editing is our friend.
Mm-hmm.